Hello there and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be doing a review of the Dwarf 3 smart telescope from DWARFLab. They've kindly sent me one to do a review of, for which I'm very grateful. If you're not familiar with what smart telescopes are, they're essentially a sort of all-in-one integrated device that allows you to do astrophotography without needing to buy all sorts of separate things like mounts and telescopes and cameras, etc., or have to worry about all the different bits of software and how to use them and set them all up. So smart telescopes are really more for the beginner side of astrophotography, but more and more people are turning to them to get images of the night sky with as little effort as possible. So the Dwarf 3 is actually an upgrade to the Dwarf 2, which I reviewed some time ago, and they've made a number of significant improvements to the product. So I'm going to show you what you actually get. We'll take a look what's inside the carry case. So first of all, you get a nice soft carry case with a shoulder strap, and inside that you get the Dwarf 3 itself, and you also get a solar filter for taking images of the sun, and there's a USB cable, a lens cloth, etc. One thing you don't get in the box is a tripod, and that's really to keep the overall size of this down for travel, make it as portable as possible. So if you have your own camera tripod, then you can use that, provided you have a suitable interface, and the interface at the bottom of this is a 1/4 inch thread. So you need a tripod with a 1/4 inch thread, or if you have a tripod with a 3/8 inch thread, you can buy one of these little adapters. I bought this one from Amazon for just a few pounds, and that's a 3/8 to 1/4 inch adapter. So what I'm going to do is show you what's involved in actually using the Dwarf 3. As you can see, it has this rotating base. It turns on this rectangular base here. That's what's called the azimuth rotation, and then there's the elevation rotation through this. It's all motorized, but I'm turning it by hand because it's currently not powered. So the device can actually find its way around the sky. It can match patterns of stars, so it knows where it's pointing. You can tell it what you want to image, and it will go and find it in the sky, and you can set up and start taking images, all controlled from your smartphone or tablet. So it's really a very simple and elegant way of taking pictures of the night sky, and there's really not much for you to pack if you want to take this with you on holiday. It's pretty compact, as you can see. You'll have your smartphone with you anyway, and tripod wise, you can get these very tiny little tripods. You don't need much at all. You could even just place it on its base like this without a tripod on a nice flat level surface. So I'm going to charge this up, and then we'll have a go at using it. So firstly, I want to show you how you charge the Dwarf 3. On the base, it's got a USB Type-C connection just here. So you simply take the charger cable and plug that in there, and then the other end will go into a mains to USB Type-C charger device, which doesn't come with the unit, so you'll need to have your own one. For the solar imaging option, as I mentioned, there is what's called a neutral density filter, which looks like this, and that is magnetic, so it simply snap fits onto there. If you want to image the sun, you must put this on first so that it does not point at the sun without that protection, because that will damage the sensors in all probability. So that's the solar filter. So I'm going to take it outside under a clear night sky, switch it on and show you how to use it. So I've got this tripod which actually came with the Dwarf 2. It's a really nice compact tripod. So I'm going to screw that into the bottom of the unit like so. Just spread the 3 legs on it, and then I can stand it up nicely. And if it's not quite level, I can just undo the ball head and just adjust that until it is level, and then tighten it off. I can then just manually rotate the elevation so that it can see some stars, and now I can switch it on at the end, just a single press on the on-off button. That wakes it up, and it takes 20 or 30 seconds to boot up, and then you connect to it using the app on your smartphone or tablet. So now we need to run up the app on my phone and we'll click connect. So it searched for the device and it can see the device here. So we'll select the device and hopefully it will connect successfully. We'll say we want to join its Wi-Fi. And it's successfully joined. Okay, that's great. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Atlas, and we've got a map of the sky here, so we can zoom in and out, we can scroll around, etc. So I'm going to just click on the bottom left corner here and put on the landscape, which puts on the horizon so I can see what's above the sky right now. And I'm thinking we'll start with something like the Pleiades. Scroll in there and we'll just center the Pleiades like that. And then we'll hit go. Put the lens into a cloudless sky with dense stars, ensuring there are no obstructions. OK. So now it's going to figure out where it's pointing by taking some pictures of the stars and comparing the patterns of the stars against its sort of star map that it has internally. That will enable it to work out where it's actually pointing, and then it can move until it's got the Pleiades framed as I've requested. Okay, so now it says it's go-to processing. And go-to is the process of getting the telescope pointing at the thing you want to point at. Okay, it says it's succeeded, so that's great. So it's switching to photo mode. So we can now set up whether we want the Astrofilter. Okay, set parameters. Recommended preset 15 seconds, shutter 60 gain, 4K. Tap to start astrophotography. 15 seconds. We'll go with the 15 seconds. Shutter 15 seconds, gain is 60, count 999, that's fine. Filter, we'll use the Astro filter. So we'll hit go and we'll just do continue current shooting. Okay, and we can see the Pleiades on the screen there, and we can see it's now taking a shot. So we should get our first image, 15-second image shortly. And we can see down here it says stacked 1. So that's a single image on the Pleiades. So we have now got 10 15-second shots, so that's 150 seconds, so just over 2 minutes of stacked imaging. And you can see in this area here there is some visible nebulosity in this part of the sky. I'm quite sure how you zoom, there we go. You can see that there's something a bit more than just noise going on here, it's actually nebulosity. But that'll take quite a bit more imaging for that to really show up nicely. So we'll come back in a little while. Okay, so we've got 86 frames stacked now, so that's just over 20 minutes of imaging, and you can really see this nebulosity starting to become more and more visible. So that's a nice little demonstration of imaging the Pleiades with Dwarf 3. So I'm now going to have a go at M42, the Great Orion Nebula. So we'll zoom out. M42. So let's just go around there, it is over there. So we'll zoom in on M42. There we go. And I've set the field of view to 1.4 times vertically. So you can change this vertically, and you can also change this horizontally, which is very good for the framing. I guess it's some sort of mosaic mode going on there. Okay, and I hit go. So you should shortly see our first 15-second shot. And there we go. Looking good. It's nicely focused. So we need to leave that for a period of time to stack up lots of shots. Okay, we've been going about 12 minutes now, and we can zoom in and have a look at what we've got. So I'm just coming up on 1 hour. Now the battery was getting quite low, so I thought I would do an important test, which is to see if I could plug in a mains cable and operate at the same time as charging. And the answer is yes, you can. So you can see I'm on 62%. I was on a bit less than that not so long ago. It has crept up very, very slowly, but it is not losing charge. So it's charging quicker than it's discharging. So that's good news, which means you can run indefinitely if you run it on a power cable. That's great. So I'm just going to stack 240. I've stacked 240 frames. That's 1 hour of data. So I'm going to press stop. And it's important to press end current session when you finish. So we can go into album and we can take a look at our result, which is here. And you can see it's done a lot of noise reduction on that image. A little bit fuzzy with the noise reduction. But there we go. But you can see this big gradient where it's bright at the bottom. The background is bright at the bottom and dark at the top. Now you can schedule a whole night's worth of imaging by clicking on schedule and then create a schedule. You enter a name for your schedule, so I'll call mine my schedule. The location is set automatically because I've got that switched on, and down the bottom you can set the date that you're actually going to be imaging. So you can choose the date and it shows you at the top the hours of darkness that are available. Once you've picked the date, you can now click the plus at the bottom here to add objects into your schedule. You then get a list of targets, and you can either search for a target by scrolling or type the name of a target in. And once you've picked a target, you can use the sliders to select which portion of the period of the night when it's visible you want to image, and then save it into your schedule. So I can now pick the Orion Nebula and choose a period of time for that as well that abuts to the time period for the Pleiades, and press save at the top when I'm done. So now I've got 2 objects being imaged one after the other. And now finally I'm going to choose the Heart Nebula and choose a window of time for that as well. And when I'm happy with that, I'll press save. And now I've got my schedule, and all I need to do is press sync when the dwarf unit is connected, and it will perform that imaging. Okay, I've got a nice sunny day, so I'm going to have a go at imaging the sun. So I've mounted the Dwarf 3 on a tripod in the garden here. I'm just going to turn in elevation just enough that I can put the solar filter on without pointing the telescope at the sun. Just pop that solar filter on, rotate a little further. I can now switch the unit on, and once it's booted up we can connect on the phone. Okay, so we're in, so I'll go to photo. And now we should get our view from our camera. Now we can see in the wide angle view that we're not too far from the sun, so I'll use the manual joystick to steer up towards the sun to get it into the view of the telephoto lens. Here it comes. There we go. Now I can close the wide angle view and I can just center that a little better. Now it's clear that we need to change the settings, but we also want to track the sun as well. So let's just sort out the tracking first. So I pressed function and then I press sun track, and it's already on a flat surface. ND filters are applied and the sun is already in the center of the view, and so I can click done already, and it will just organize itself to track the sun and put it at the center of the view. So the sun should now stay positioned as the Earth rotates. Great. So the next thing is to sort out the exposure, because it's clearly overexposed at the moment. So I'll press function and choose parameter, and I'm going to stay with the visible filter, but I'm going to drop the gain right down to 10, like so. And now I'm going to adjust the shutter, and we'll use a faster shutter speed or a shorter exposure until I'm happy that it looks sensibly exposed. So it's a little bit hard to see that. I'm just going to hide by pressing function, and now we can zoom in and we can see, oh, perhaps a little bit overexposed there, so I might just go back and just adjust it a little there. So an 800th of a second at a gain of 10 is looking good, and I want to make sure that it's really well focused as well. So I'm going to press focus, and I'm going to try running the autofocus. And you can see the atmospheric wobble, especially around the edges of the sun. That's normal, but we're really looking to get those sunspots as well focused as possible, and that looks good. So we can hide the focus menu now. So we go back to the full view, and I can now take a photo with the photo button, maybe take a couple, and I can also, by pressing on photo, I can go and change mode to video and press the start button and shoot a video as well. See, it counts at the top how many seconds it's been shooting for. So we'll take a 15-second video, and then we'll hit stop. Okay, great. So now we can go into album, and we can see the photo that I've taken, and have a little look and have a closer look at these sunspots. And we can also watch the video if we want to, and play that back as well. Okay, so that is the solar imaging capabilities of the Dwarf 3. I think it was pretty good. One thing I'm particularly impressed at is the solar tracking. Look how well the sun is nailed right in the middle of the view there. It is not moving at all, and that's really helpful. So I like that. And the adjustments to the exposure are really effective, and we can get a good exposure without anything overexposing. So I've come down to Portsdown Hill near where I live to give the Dwarf 3 a go in a number of different modes. I'm going to try the panoramic mode, I'm going to try the time lapse as well as the object tracking. So let's give this a go. We've got Portsmouth Harbour down here, which is a perfect place. We've got lots of boats moving around in the harbour, so let's see what we can do. Okay, so I'm connected to the unit. I'm going to go into photo, and you'll see that I'm actually in pano mode already, but to select it, you press on the mode and choose pano, which is on the bottom there. And if you go into function, there is a thing called range, and under range you set up the number of rows and columns that you want for your panorama. So for example, if I want 10 columns and 5 rows, that will give me a total of 50 shots that are going to get mosaic together. Columns, more columns means the photo is wider, more rows means it covers more field of view in height. So I'll close up function now, and basically what we want to do is just press the shoot button. You'll notice there's some wobble, particularly visible on the telephoto. That's because it's quite windy today, and that wobble may affect some of the shots, so I shall try and shield the Dwarf 3 with my body so it doesn't get too much wind blow on it. So let's set it going. And when you first press the button, it moves dramatically off to the left. It's doing some form of calibration. There's me, hello. So we'll allow it to do this calibration that it's doing. And hopefully it will soon start taking shots. There we go. So it's taking the first shots, and these are of the sky. Now they look very overexposed to me, so it looks to me as if we need to drop the exposure. But I'm going to let this continue anyway. You see that it's taking 10 images along the first row, and then it drops down, and now it's taking 10 images along the second row. There's the top of the Spinnaker Tower. So that's the second row complete. I'll now drop down again and come back. So it's doing it in a kind of zigzag raster style order, which I guess is the most efficient from a speed point of view. You can see that after each move there's a bit of wobble that takes time to dissipate, and I think it's allowing enough time for that to dissipate before it takes the shot. Hopefully it is. So we're on the fourth row now. And now we're on the final row. And one more shot to take. There we go, and it goes back to the center. So that's taken all of the 50 shots. If I go into album, I'll actually only see one item under panoramas, and if you click on it, it's the first shot, I believe, which is just the sky. And you can't download this to your camera, you have to connect it to your computer and download the 50 photos to your computer and actually mosaic them together on the computer, which is a bit of a shame. I thought it was going to do all that for me, but clearly that's not the case. So we'll have to wait until we get home to actually stitch those together. So I'm going to show you how I processed these images when I got home. I used a old Microsoft program called Image Composite Editor, which I downloaded for free online some years ago. And I'm going to click New Panorama from Images, and I'm going to select all of the files that the Dwarf 3 recorded, apart from the thumbnail, and they're numbered in rows and columns. So 01_03 is row. Is actually the second row and the fourth image, because they start from 0. So I hit open, and that brings up the images. Now it's important that we sort by file name, and that we click on this drop down and choose rotating motion, and then open up the structured panorama. Now it's detected that it's got 50 images, but it's wrongly defaulting to starting in the top right hand corner when it actually started in the top left. So I'm going to click on the top left corner so that we're starting in the right place, and then I'm going to use this column slider to change the number of columns to 10. Now at the moment you'll see that the image order is set to serpentine, which is actually how the shots were taken, but if you look you'll see that they're not correct. For example, the top of the Spinnaker Tower is here and the bottom of it is over here. So what's happened is that the Dwarf 3 has actually renumbered each of the even rows. So this row and this row, it's renumbered them backwards to try and turn them into zigzag files when they were actually shot in serpentine. So you actually have to switch it to zigzag in order for them to line up correctly like this. So that's important. The next thing is to look at the overlap. Now you can see, if you click preview overlap, you can see that it's assuming far too much vertical overlap with 80% there. So I'm going to change that number to 20%. And now you can see it hopping backwards and forwards, and you can see there's very little movement. So that's great. I'm just going to give it a little more freedom to search for a match by increasing the search radius to 15%. So now I'm ready to go to the next step. You can either press next or press stitch up here. I shall click next, and now it's actually performing the alignment between the images, and once it's done that, it will actually start creating the composite or mosaic image based on the alignment that it's achieved. So you can see it's finished aligning the images, and now it's producing the composite image. This takes it just a little while, but it's not too bad. Actually, once it gets near the end, it goes very quickly, so it looks like it's going to take a lot more time. Actually, it's probably only going to be about 30 seconds more, and this will be complete. So we'll just be a little bit patient here and wait for this to finish. Almost there. As I say, even though it doesn't look like it, it's going to suddenly accelerate in a moment and jump to the end. There we go. Right. So now it's showing us the result, and we can move this slider here to make it bigger so we can see what we're doing. Now we can see that it's actually got a horizon that isn't straight, so we need to change the projection to cylindrical. And now we get a pretty straight looking horizon, and this is our first opportunity to look and see, has it actually stitched the image together properly? And I'm delighted to say I think the answer is yes, it has. And you can at this point also, I believe, apply some adjustments to the orientation. I really don't think that I need to. So I'm going to click next and go to the crop stage. Okay. And here all I'm going to do is just crop off. I'm going to do it manually, although there is an auto crop feature. I'm just going to manually crop off the areas that don't have any image in them, like that, and that's fine. And now I can click next, and now we can actually output the file. Now you can choose whether you want TIFF or PNG, for example. I'm going to go with a JPEG. You can choose its quality, and once you're happy you can click export to disk. Just before we do that, let's have a little look, and you can see, you can zoom in on this image an awful lot and see a huge amount of detail. So this is really a very high resolution image. We've got 31,000 pixels horizontally and nearly 9,000 vertically, so it's 277 megapixels from a very small sensor. So it's a really clever technique and it works beautifully. So let's do export to disk, and I can call it whatever I want, Panorama 1. I think I've already got a file called that, so I'll just overwrite that, and it exports the panorama. And that's it, we're done. We can close this program now, and we've got our high resolution image. The next thing I want to show you is object tracking. So I've got a boat moving around in the harbour here. I'm just going to use the finger joystick to point at that, switch to the telephoto lens, press function and object track, and drag a rectangle over the object. And you see I have a green rectangle now, which means it is actively tracking an object. And as you can see, as it sails along, the Dwarf 3 is moving to follow and keep that object in the center of the field of view. So I'm recording a video now whilst tracking the object as it sails along. So that is the object tracking mode. It's very effective, provided the object doesn't go behind another object. So it can cause it to lose track when that happens. Also, it's limited by the speed at which the telescope can move. So for example, if you were tracking a bird and it on a lake and then it decided to fly away, then it would lose track pretty quickly when the bird flies off. So just be aware of that. It's really suitable for things that are moving at a moderate pace, such as, you know, an animal walking around in the countryside, or a boat moving on the water. It's fine for things like that. So the next thing I want to show you is the time lapse mode. So once you choose time lapse and go to function settings, you get an interval and a shooting duration. So you can put the interval between which individual frames will be captured to a minimum of 1 second, but you can set intervals to anything you like, and the shooting duration as well. And it displays at the bottom what the total duration of the video will be. So here, for example, I've got an interval of say 5 seconds. Over 10 minutes, that will produce 4 seconds of video. If the interval is 1 second, it will produce in 10 minutes 20 seconds of video. So in this example, I set it running with those settings. So I'm not going to sit here obviously for 10 minutes, but I will show you what the result was. So after 10 minutes, this is the video that it produced. There are some little wobbles, and that's caused by the wind blowing on the unit. So obviously if you can shelter it from the wind, that's really helpful. But it's done a very nice job of making a time-lapse video of the entrance to Portsmouth Harbour. Now I thought it would also be interesting to see if I could do a time-lapse using the wide-angle lens, but I actually found that the sky was so bright I had to put the solar filter on and then adjust the camera settings, and I managed to produce this 20-second time-lapse video with the wide-angle lens. So I've had a really good go with the Dwarf 3 and I've explored all the different things that it can do, apart from actually the burst mode, which I didn't get to try out. But it's really got a very wide range of capabilities, and although it's physically changed from the Dwarf 2, by far the biggest change is in the software, and they really have worked very hard on the software, and it's much better than it was in the days of the Dwarf 2. But the hardware is better as well. It's got a better sensor and a wider aperture. So it's a good little package, and it remains really compact and portable. It takes reasonable pictures of the night sky. I tried it, as you saw, on the Pleiades and on M42. And the images were not too bad. I'm not sure about the noise reduction. I think it's a little soft. After it's done the noise reduction, I prefer without that. But it requires some experimentation. And of course, you can get it to store the original frames and stack them yourself if you really want to do your own processing. But generally, I don't think that's something that people with smart telescopes mostly want to do. I know that some people do that, and that's fine. I also explored imaging the sun, and the tracking was brilliant. And obviously, to get the best out of those images, you need to shoot video and then get into using stacking software like Registax to get the best out of those images and get the best images of the sun. But I was really impressed with the solar tracking capability. That was really good. And then the other daytime modes, the panoramic function is really good, although it is a shame that it doesn't do the actual mosaicing for you. I have messaged DwarfLab and suggested that they add that as a capability, and I also suggested that they add a grid so that you could actually see when you're choosing how many rows and columns to use in your panorama, that you could actually see how much of the field of view that would give you. So we'll see whether they take on board those suggestions. The time-lapse function is really fun. I thoroughly enjoyed using that, but of course these are not astrophotography functions, but I thought I'd explore them anyway, as the Dwarf 3 is more than just an astrophotography telescope. It can also do some fun things in the daytime, and the object tracking was fun too. So I've had a good time with this. I think it's a really good product. I would recommend you considering this if you're looking at getting a smart telescope. Of course, there are other competitors out there as well, and I've done reviews of some of those already, and I'm going to be actually reviewing another smart telescope before too long as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please be aware subscribing to a YouTube channel doesn't cost you anything. It just means that you get notified when you click that little bell icon of future videos when I release them. So do please subscribe and give us a like, and any feedback in the comments would be very welcome as well. So until next time, clear skies.